day. My name is ALYSA BITO-ON from BEAMS 12 and we will be discussing about gender inequality. So first off, gender inequality is a social process by which men and women are not treated as equals, where one is said to be more superior than the other. We must also keep in mind the differences between sex and gender before proceeding to any other else. So sex defines the identity of a person according to his or her sexual organs by birth, while gender is the performance of roles, identities, ideas of being masculine, feminine, or having mutual traits. Now, these gender roles tend to cause problems or issues, such as the topics that are about to be mentioned. One is sex discrimination in employment. Two is gender bias in sexual harassment and domestic violence. Three is gender bias in mental health care. And lastly, four, societal mindsets on gender roles. The first point, which is sex discrimination in employment, will be discussed by Don and Chito.
So our first talk is all about sex discrimination and inequality in employment. Despite decades of progressive efforts, there's still a great deal of inequality in workplaces across the country. Some common inequalities that takes place in the workplace are the gender-based imbalances of individuals in power and command over the management of the organization. Women are not able to move up into higher paid positions as quickly as men. In the workplace, the men usually hold the higher positions, and the women often hold lower paid positions such as secretaries. We can also notice that we rarely see a woman in a construction site and men in a household job, right? We always thought that the workload are too easy and too hard for them and are not suitable for their gender. Gender inequality can also be understood when looking at the members of LGBT community. Workers have different experiences when transitioning to the workplace. Power that was held previously can be lost when transitioning to a woman, while workers transitioning to a man can experience a power gain. The occupational inequality greatly affects the socio-economic status of an individual, which is linked with their access to resources like finding a job, buying a house, etc. If an individual experiences occupational inequality, it may be more difficult for them to find a job, advance in their job, get a loan, or buy a house. Also, the gender wage gap takes in, and it is the difference between average earnings for men and women. There are multiple theories for the reasons as to why this exists, but a large amount of the gender wage gap can be attributed to the fact that women work different jobs than men, as opposed to that women are paid differently within the same jobs or establishments. In a study completed in 2005, it was found that working fathers are paid an 8.6% higher starting wage than working mothers. There are organizing processes and causes that produce class, racial, and gender inequalities. Many inequalities occur because of implicit bias. Many people have argued that the women gain their social position from the men around them, such as their fathers, husband, and relative. This is because womanhood has throughout history been attributed to childbearing and raising a family, the stereotyping. For the law enactment of this matter, let's hear some from Chito.
With gender employment conflicts, we are protected by the enactment of Republic Act No. 9710, or the Magna Carta of Women fulfills the commitment of the government to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, which the Philippines ratified in 1981. This act categorically defines discrimination against women. It shall promote empowerment of women and pursue equal opportunities for women and men, and ensure equal access to resources and to development results and outcomes. In addition, the state shall provide the necessary mechanisms to enforce women's rights and adopt and undertake all legal measures necessary to foster and promote the equal opportunity for women to participate in and contribute to the development of the political, economic, social, and cultural realms. While the gender inequality in employment about LGBTQ are protected by an ordinance to protect the rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people from discrimination. The latest in a slew of local laws passed across the country, in some certain places and cities of the Philippines. In addition, the Mandaluyong City adds the Anti-Discrimination Ordinance prohibits such discriminatory acts as denying or limiting employment-related access, denying access to public programs or services, refusing admission, expelling or dismissing a person from educational institution due to their sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, or SOGI. It also prohibits verbal or written abuse, unjust detention, involuntary confinement, denying access to facilities, and illegalizing formation of groups that incite SOGI-related discrimination. Let's proceed to the next point to be discussed by Lloyd and Billy.
Over the years has passed, gender bias has been one of the most problematic issues in our society around the globe regarding on sexual violence and domestic violence. It is undeniable that violence against all genders still exists in our society. Intimate partner violence and sexual violence is a major public health problem and a violation against women's human rights. According to World Health Organization, about 1 in 3 or 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual partner violence or non-partner violence in their lifetime. For instance, when a woman is violated, we are most likely to stand on their side. But how about those men who has been sexually assaulted and abused by a woman? A lot of us are having a misconception regarding that men should be brave, aggressive, and bold. But in fact, men can be vulnerable as well as can protect themselves. Keep in mind, men can be victims of sexual harassment too. Additionally, sexual harassment is not limited to parties of the opposite sex. Men can sexually harass men and women may sexually harass men.
With that kind of conflicts, we are protected by Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995 or Republic Act 7877, an act declaring sexual harassment unlawful employment or training environment and other purposes. In addition, a lawmaker has filed a bill that will protect spouses and partners in intimate relationships regardless of gender against domestic violence. In House Bill number 4888, Rizal 2nd District Representative Fidel Nograles seeks to expand the coverage of Republic Act number 9262 or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004 to also cover abuse committed against same-sex partners and husbands in heterosexual relationships. Under the bill, the term partner covers not only heterosexual relationships but also lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, intersex, cisgender, and transgender partners. Organizations like Mankind Initiatives and National Coalition for Men aims to provide support for male victims of domestic abuse and violence, while organizations like People Opposing Women Abuse or POA aims to ensure the realization of women's rights and terribly improve women's quality of life. We should stop being gender biased and try to understand both sides. After all, no person, regardless of the gender, should suffer from sexual harassment and domestic violence.
Women are more likely to have been treated for a mental health problem than men, 29% compared to 17%. This could be because, when asked, women are more likely to report symptoms of common mental health problems. But we all know that it affects both women and men equally. We have the Philippine Mental Health Act for Republic Act number 11036 protects the rights of patients as follows: a right to freedom from discrimination, right to protection from torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, right to aftercare and rehabilitation, right to be adequately informed about psychosocial and clinical assessments, right to participate in treatment plan to be implemented, right to evidence-based or informed consent, right to confidentiality, and right to counsel, among others. More women than men tend to experience mental health issues, including PTSD. More women are affected by PTSD than men, largely because women are exposed to more sexual violence. As for anxiety, women are twice as likely to experience anxiety disorders as men. About 60% of the people with phobias or obsessive compulsive disorder are women. When it comes on eating disorders, 1.9% of women and 0.2% of men experience anorexia in any year. Between 0.5% and 1% of young women experience bulimia at any one time. Male Voice is an organization that supports men who have eating disorders and try to break down the stigma around men and eating disorders. And as for depression, 1 in 4 women would seek treatment for depression at some time compared with 1 in 10 men. The reasons for this are unclear, but are thought to include social factors such as poverty and isolation and biological factors such as the hormonal changes experienced by women. However, some researchers dispute the relatively low depression rate for men.
According to pharmaphil.co.uk, men are reluctant to seek help for health worries. 1 in 5 men will die before the age of 65. Men die on average 6 years earlier than women. Suicide is the leading cause of death among men under 45. These are stark statistics, yet men apparently still find it more difficult than women to seek help when they have health worries. They say boys will be boys. Some men are afraid to talk about health matter. Despite of getting treated, they allow the situation to worsen. Some reasons behind why men are less likely than women to visit their doctor or pharmacist, and found that it could be down to the influence of culture on the shaping of masculine identity. It all comes down to that man-up mentality society drills into boys' heads. Boys learn not to show physical or emotional vulnerability, and they're encouraged to strive for achievement and success. It also added the fear surrounding the potential loss of masculinity, which may result in the facade of control and stoicism, instead of honesty about reporting symptoms or openness about feelings and insecurities associated with particular illnesses. Meanwhile, according to a report cited by the Men's Health Forum, health is often socially constructed as feminine concern. The psychologist.bps.org.uk stated that, in fact, it is likely that we've collectively experienced male gender blindness, which makes it more difficult for us to see male suffering than female suffering. We should keep in mind that anyone can suffer from things that they didn't talk about. We should end the stigma of stereotyping and raise the mental health awareness.
Yes, for the last point, we have societal mindset in gender roles. Gender roles in society can define as how we are expected to act, speak, dress, conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex. We grew up believing that women should dress in typically feminine ways and generally expected to do household chores, be accommodating, and to bear a child. But let's face some fact that some women are not capable of bearing a child, and I believe that it doesn't make them less as a woman. And I also believe that the essence of being a woman won't end there. However, when it comes to men, they are expected to be masculine, tough, aggressive, dominant, and they should provide for the family. It is already engraved on man's mindset that if you ever build a family, you have the sole responsibility to provide for them, which they believe their usual role. Hence, it is a shame for them being jobless and letting their wives work. Societal mindset telling us the do's and don'ts based upon our assigned sex, which hinder us to do something and to achieve more. That's why when a woman tries to apply for security position or heavy workloads, they are being underestimated for being a woman. However, when a man tries to apply for some sort of household jobs, they tend to be rejected for the thought of household chores are usually done by women. With this conflict, men and women cannot have the job they desire because of the societal mindset that tells us who's more suitable and who's not.
In addition, when we're talking about gender roles of men and women, in the first thought, we think that men was the first in line in gender comparison. We're aware of men being dominant and superior in different aspects, like our home, at workplace, even at churches, that women aren't allowed to preach because of religious beliefs or standards. We're used of having male president as well, and it's also common for everyone to ignore other areas of gender inequality. When there's progress such as better representation for women in leadership, this type of mindset prop up gender inequality and delay significant change. It might be reinforces the traditional view about how women are supposed to contribute at home, and for the history itself that women was the most treated like slave, and because of the societal mindset of the people that men was very powerful than women, it affects the equality in the Philippines. Beliefs about gender run deep, and even though progress can be made through laws and structural changes, there's often a pushback following times of major change. Overall, mindset of a society has significant impact on gender inequality. How society determines the differences in value of men versus women plays a staring role in every arena, whether it's employment or the legal system or healthcare. After all, it isn't who's more suitable. It's about men and women do the things they're capable at.
Certain organizations such Gabriela Women's Party List, the General Assembly Binding Women for Reforms, Integrity, Equity, Leadership, and Action is a leftist Filipino organization that advocates for women's issue. And Samahan ng Malalitang Kababaihang Nagkakaisa, or Association of United Poor Women, also advocates in promoting the development of women's welfare.
While Male Champions of Change stand for MCC, Institute works with influential leaders to redefine men's role in taking action on gender inequality. Men Engage is a global alliance of NGOs and UN agencies that seeks to engage boys and men to achieve gender equality, human rights, and social justice, to achieve a world in which all can enjoy healthy, fulfilling, and equitable relationship and their full potential.
Now, is it gender inequality, or is it the gender roles and representation, stereotyping that causes the roots for all these problems? I mean, we're all capable of supporting each other anyway, men and women, despite of all our biological differences. Being equal doesn't necessarily mean being the same, right? And that covers up our whole topic. Thank you.